Thank you so much. Before I start, again, I'm Susan Waller, and I'm actually representing INGA, the Interstate Natural Gas Association of America. I am with Spectra Energy. But before I start, I have to congratulate Carl and the board members of the Pipeline Safety Trust. This has been a great conference. And you know what? The fact that, we are at the end of the week and that some of the panels went over, I really, they could have kept going. I mean, this was great. I mean, it was truly been a great collaborative, a lot of good information. So with that, PIPA, hopefully most of you know about Pipelines and Informed Planning Alliance. Julie is going to go more through the details of PIPA, but what I'd like to do is talk about how INGA has made a commitment. INGA, as you know, we have 26 members, and we represent 2/3 of the pipeline I have to make sure we're clear. This is the interstate transmission pipelines. Andy earlier showed you our goal of zero pipeline incidents, and you'll note the very last guiding principle talks about that we will engage our stakeholders from the local community to the national level so they understand and can participate in reducing risk. And that's exactly what PIPA is doing with the communities, to get in early in the planning to build near pipelines. Further, throughout our IMCI action teams, I'm on team number 1, and that's the stakeholder outreach team. And you can see here that PIPA is clearly identified. Dan Martin, who is the Executive Vice President for El Paso, he chairs this team. And then Greg Ford of Williams, Greg and I co-chair a sub-part of this team. So there is a distinct member group, and we actually meet every Friday to see how we're doing and checking our scorecard. The next item, these are actually the action plans, and you heard many, I know Andy Drake today talked about the IMCI action plans, and he focused on 3 of them. And PIPA, I just wanted to show you that PIPA is number 6. We had some priority issues, so we've sort of kicked it up a notch thanks to Julie's efforts. Julie, of course, chairs the national PIPA team, and we've really made some significant I would say, commitments to Julie that we are going to see some action. So she's done a great job leading this team. I wanted to put this up because this really reflects all of the continuous improvement that we've been able to work with DOT and PHMSA throughout the many years. I mean, if you look, RP 1162 is about 2011. 2010, well, excuse me, RP 1162 back in 2002 or 3 is when we finally had that. I was one of the authors of that, and that's a public awareness standard. And PIPA, as you can see, 2010, the end of last year, really finally, I mean, there was many years of a collaborative effort for people working together to get this established. But you can see there has been a lot of effort. The next slide really just talks about INGA's 2-bullet, our commitment. And number 1, the coalition of the INGA members, making sure there's a commitment that we do have all the representatives engaged. And then second, members are committed to collaborating with PIPA stakeholders to increase awareness and adoption of PIPA recommended practices. I'm going to go through a scorecard and show you of the recommended practices, how we've done. And I think it's important. We've actually challenged all of our operators to evaluate this scorecard and to see how they've done. I liked what Carl said. He said, what's happening? Is anything happening with PIPA? With the economy the way it is, we aren't seeing a lot of development near our pipelines. So it's not an excuse, but it's a fact. We do get notification on some buildings near our pipeline, but it's not as it has been in the past. Just in the past couple of years, we have seen a significant slowdown of planning or building near the pipelines. INGA's initiative, I've labeled 4 initiatives that we've been very active on, is the committee members, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to show you some screenshots of INGA's website. We've developed a PIPA one-pager that when our government relations people are in planning offices with the local officials, they actually drop these one-pagers off to help people understand more about what PIPA is. And then lastly, we've developed an exhibit that will travel to all the stakeholder conferences starting first quarter of next year. We did this with emergency responders. We've actually done some stand-up exhibits that talk about briefly, the accomplishments and how we want to engage with stakeholders, and those exhibits are really helpful. In terms of the specific member companies, as I mentioned, there's 26 interstate pipelines that are members of INGA. We have all pledged to have a link on our internal and external websites to PIPA. Some operators actually have a whole page that talks all about PIPA. We've included PIPA in our annual brochures that are mailed to the public. Those brochures actually went out this week for Spectra Energy. So the public official, originally there was no real discussion on planning around pipelines. So we believe that's a significant step in terms of at least getting our internal people recognizing that that's something we need to communicate and follow through. And as you know, we're in 26 states, and we have area managers, area offices, so we've engaged with those local representatives so that they can also understand PIPA. We've developed a guidebook for building near our pipelines for planning officials and developers. I know TransCanada and Williams also have developer guidebooks. I just brought an example for you to see. And then the PIPA orientation webinar we planned for first quarter of next year. INGA will have all the operators and the different stakeholders within each company will be on a webinar, and then we will be conducting a workshop. And the last statement at the bottom, effective pipeline safety is a shared responsibility and requires active engagement between operators, the government, and the public. We really believe that it's, our responsibility as an operator to reach out and go to public officials, go to the stakeholders. We can't expect them to continue, coming to us. We can't be arrogant, operators. This is just a quick screenshot of INGA's website. I encourage you to go to INGA's website if you see any recommendations, that you think that we should improve. INGA recently hired a Director of Communications, Kathy Landry. Kathy's really raised the awareness, being mainly engineers, and I see all of our INGA engineers in the room. One thing that's really happened with INGA, and I've actually been working with this industry for over 30 years, sorry to show my age, but the engineers have given us a seat at the table. So as a communicator, I really appreciate that. And I think that's what we've recognized that we really need to do more of, is get people with this, the not so technical skills that can read and look at what the engineers are doing and putting it more in layman terms. But the website's been really good, but we'd appreciate your feedback. This is a shot of the one-pager that we've done. It's also available on INGA's website. INGA's prepared an entire page with many links on PIPA. This is a screenshot of Spectra's, our front page, our home page. I know it's very small, but PIPA's in the very bottom. Hopefully you can see it. That link actually goes back to DOT's website, and it connects, and it has much more description. TransCanada's, I took theirs, but if you go along the different operators' websites, you'll see PIPA, it was never there before. I mean, this was for 811, of course, is always there, but this was a big initiative in terms of getting more awareness at a corporate level within all of our member companies. Now this chart is I would say there's been a little controversy, and I think it was a good thing. We really wanted to measure what are we doing in terms of PIPA's best practices. These are recommended practices, they're not regulations, but so we went and actually did a scorecard on how Spectra is doing. And candidly, the guide materials such as the developers' handbooks and the guide material, we had not developed that until this year, and we'll be distributing this next year. So we gave ourselves a failing grade, a 0. Now, the public awareness and communication material, we felt like okay, we've gotten it into our public official document, so we'll give ourselves 50%, but we're still not there yet. And maintenance activities were really good when it comes to making the public aware that, that we are going to be hydrostatically testing or some type of activity around our pipelines. We're very good at that. Maps and pipeline locations, we need to be better. Promoting the National Pipeline Mapping System, actually getting out there and really engaging with the community planners, we're going to do a better job. And Carl, I hope you have us all back next year so we can show you how our scorecard looks, next year. Excavation activities, we need to be doing a better job there as well. Now, ordinances and legislation, I met with our GR Government Affairs group, and they were very interested in the fact of some of the things that we can improve on next year with PIPA. Right-of-way issues, 100%, right-of-way agreements, 100%, and the records, the right-of-way records, we feel like we can improve that. And one key thing is, and you'll see later on in the slides, PIPA is not just one person in our organization. PIPA is the right-of-way people, the maintenance people, the regional people, government relations. It's a lot of different people, so we are going to be much better at coordinating this team in the future. So, I think it's important that we talk about our deficiencies and we show our be more transparent about what we're doing, and then set the expectations so that you can ask us how we're doing. The new development recommended practices, again, we did not have the guide materials, and 50% on the public awareness, and then excavation activities, very good. And the right-of-way uses, now again, this is new development. This right-of-way uses, I met with our head of right-of-way, and he had some great ideas. Basically, we're going to be training the entire right-of-way team with a slideshow that Julie developed out of PHMSA. We're going to change it up a little bit just in terms of the logo and be training. And we've got a lot of good ideas just from sitting and meeting with our right-of-way team. And then, of course, the agreements were in good shape. Our challenges, Carl had asked, let's talk about challenges. Don't just tell me the good stuff, and I have shown you our scorecards so you can see that we do have some areas, a lot of areas for improvement. Raising the internal awareness and appointing accountable parties. We realize that we're really, we're not working on the same page in our company. I'm not speaking on behalf of Inga, but we've decided within Spectra we can do a better job, and we're excited about that. So educating our internal personnel, we are going to have the webinar and the workshop first quarter of next year, providing training programs, slides to all the operators, and that's something that PHMSA has helped us do, which was a really significant, a lot of work that they put together these slides. I think it's like 50 slides, and Julie calls it pick and choose, but we're probably going to need to use all 50 slides for the education. Informing external stakeholders, guidebook for developers and public officials. We think this needs to go farther. We're actually also working on our emergency guidebook that we'll be delivering to responders. We're going to have our personnel that hand delivers this and mailings also take PIPA material, because sometimes in the same building in your public officials you might have the planning commission there along with your your local emergency management group. So we're going to try to do more of really evaluate our stakeholders in terms of the local people that are available for us to engage with. Monitoring our regional developments. Just last week we had a call from Pennsylvania. They do have a development going on near one of our lines. So that's going to be our first test case to see how we can get the PIPA material out there and see how we really engage and communicate. Engaging emergency management officials with mapping. We believe that's really critical for them to have maps that have our pipeline on those maps. This is an issue that I know we've been talking about. TSA at some point they're not totally comfortable with this, but mapping, if you go to some states that have tax maps, our pipelines are on the tax maps, but they're not on some of the other maps. So what we're going to work real hard on this next 6 months is evaluating in our 26 states how we can improve that. Focus groups with planning commissions. We really have enjoyed focus groups. I know we've done Another example, Pennsylvania, because of all the shale, we've had a lot of activity there, but at our Heidlersburg compressor station, we actually conducted a focus group with about 10 of the neighbors and found out just tremendous amount of information. And they, looking at our material, did it make sense? Did we use too many acronyms? So we're planning to do some more of those. And actually some of the operators that are near, we're actually going to do this from a collaborative standpoint. I put this chart in here just because I thought it would be great for people to see how do pipelines find out that there's a development if we don't, get that call. Typically, the call comes in from the developer or the planning commission, but it can go to many places in a company. From the markers is a 1-800 number, and that 1-800 number goes to our gas control. Now, our gas control, they know how to direct it back, but they also, on our markers, there's a local number, so sometimes they'll pick up the local number. The other ways that we get calls is we have a public awareness hotline that's on our public awareness material that's mailed to stakeholders, and that we track that hotline. We have two people, actually, Dwayne and Andrea and myself. We back each other up, and we these 1-800 calls, we get back to people. We pride ourselves to get back to them within 24 hours to 2 days. But other ways, the 811, sometimes we have developers just call 811 or public, not the planning commissions, but we have had developers. Regional offices that have, there's a lot of the community that has dealt with the pipeline and they know us. So they'll call, they actually might be on their kids are on the soccer team together or whatever. So a lot of our local employees work directly with those commissions or planning commissions or developers. And then of course we have our patrols. Our pipelines are patrolled by air and we call by windshield and sometimes by foot. So that's a lot of times we detect development through that, and that is unfortunate because it's a little, we're like, geez, we want to be in on the planning part, not on after that. But the numbers go into our local offices, and they're assigned to either the right-of-way agent or the regional engineer. And this is one of our challenges because our system is so large. Like in our Algonquin system in New England, they have actually the right-of-way agents are the lead, but in our southern area, like the lower half of Texas Eastern Pipeline, we have regional engineers. So that's a culture issue that we're working through right now through, as Andy mentioned today, our safety culture that we're working very hard to implement, which actually, we have a safety culture, but this is like a different mindset that we're really working on. But I think this is it's gonna go through PIPA as well, not just all of the technical things you've heard. My last slide is just in summary to say that our success depends upon active engagement of all stakeholders, and Carl, congratulations again, and the board and all the speakers. I mean, this has been tremendous. We are taking the next steps. We're aware of public opinion, very aware. I mean, my son, my family, when an incident occurs, it's a family event. I mean, it's not just we're not just corporate people. It's really tough. We do work cooperatively with all stakeholders. We engage, and we enjoy this opportunity to learn more. But we want to focus on real improvements to safety, and we do believe PIPA is one of those. So thanks so much, and I'm going to turn it over to you.